Has Meghan Markle closed the book on her love story with Prince Harry? Now that the Duchess has hit the point where she believes she can cash in and make billions, is the royal romance that once captivated the world all but over? Does Meghan, quite simply, no longer need Harry? For a self-obsessed schemer consumed by personal ambition, tying the knot with the fifth in line to the British throne was undeniably a shrewd move that vaulted her from her lowly position as a cable show C-lister to the pinnacle of the celebrity tree. Now, in her own mind at least, she's a world-famous American dream girl. And 7 years on from that magical Windsor wedding day, former Vanity Fair editor Graydon Carter, a close friend of Harry's late great mother Diana, wonders whether marrying upwards has fulfilled its function for dedicated social mountaineer Ms Markle. In a withering observation that for Meg, Harry has served his purpose, Carter told the New York Post his usefulness to her diminishes daily. Once she needed old ginger nuts to get noticed. Now she's here, she's there, she's every bloody where, and he's nowhere to be seen. While hapless Harry faffs around resigning from his disastrous African charity, Meghan hangs out with Gwyneth Paltrow, bores everyone senseless with dreary drivel plugging her mind-numbing podcasts about entrepreneurial women, and posts pictures of her redhead kids on Instagram in a bid to rake in a fortune from the bland clothes she wears. The fabulous female philanthropist who was going to change the world, reduced to hawking clobber on social media. Isn't that special? Add to this plans for her still stagnant lifestyle as yet to flog household gear like towels, cutlery and not particularly homemade food, and the venal Duchess of Sussex is reportedly convinced she's on course to become a billionaire. Good luck with that. After more than a year of bureaucratic bungling, trademark troubles and, frankly, all-round uselessness, finally opening for business might help. But despite her plethora of problems, make no mistake, however wrongly, Meghan now sees herself as the main attraction. And, for want of a less painfully poignant description, Harry is just the spare. Story of his life. Certainly, it seems clear that the prince has cause for concern. When it comes to cutting loved ones out of her life, Meghan has a track record for ruthlessness. Her first marriage to American film producer Trevor Engelson finished abruptly when, much to his stunned dismay, she suddenly posted him her wedding and engagement rings by registered mail. Nice. Others for whom the difficult Duchess has no further requirement include her father Thomas Markle, her brother Thomas Markle Jr. and her sister Samantha, all dispatched to Siberia by the Hollywood lighting man's daughter with ideas way above her station. Her family expelled, never to be spoken to again, for somehow not fitting in with Her Montecito Majesty's meticulously constructed regal image. And so, Manic Meg's relentlessly narcissistic march to self-glorification continues apace. A carefully choreographed real-life drama of desperately longed-for triumphant success in which there appears to be no co-starring role for that ship-adrift second husband of hers, the increasingly directionless Duke of Sussex. With his wife a whirling dervish of non-stop headline-hitting activity, poor little Harry isn't doing much at all. And his empty life just got emptier. His beloved African charity Centre Ballet, which he founded in memory of his mom to help kids afflicted by HIV and AIDS, has spectacularly unravelled. The devastated Duke sensationally resigned amid damaging allegations of racism, bullying and misogyny after the organisation's chairwoman, Sophie Chandorka, turned whistleblower and launched a thinly veiled attack on the royal trustee. No doubt who seething Sophie was referring to when she stormed, There are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people and then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. Ouch. No suggestion, of course, that this massive meltdown is his fault, but nevertheless, terrible news for Harry. Meanwhile, the distraught Duke's busy wife is otherwise engaged. Behind the gilded gates of his distant castle, shimmering in the Californian sun, the runaway prince's fairy tale is fading fast. He may struggle to live happily ever after.
We can't go through today without talking about Meghan. I mean, obviously, Harry, he's had a particularly hard time. He's been outed as a homophobic, misogynistic racist against...
I don't think homophobic, but...
well, I'm just going to add that because that's what they added. And the point that... I don't know if I made this to you. I think it was Robert Jobson the other day. That whole Harry and Meghan thing that's coming out of this Centre Bali Charities. Do you remember when all of the rubbish happened? They were, we hate the press. We'll only have an official source through Scooby-Doo or whatever. Now, that we'll never do sources, will always speak. They've said nothing about him being a bully. Nothing at all. Just unofficial comments from people associated with them. Today, shocking news, my friends, and news we need to share with you. Why are we doing this? Meghan Markle's jam is going to cost nearly 11 quid a jar as she launched, as ever today, the Duchess, she's not a Duchess, no, has released the long-awaited lifestyle brand items, which she first teased a year ago under a different name today, with the fruit preserves becoming an emblematic theme of the range. Of age, I've been a broadcaster for a long, long time, and I'm talking about Meghan Markle's jam.
Well, I have a scoop for you. So Meghan Markle's jam sold out, and she's taking a victory lap.
Sorry, hold on. What? She sold 10 jars or what?
Thank you. So products were produced in small quantities of inventory so that they can claim she sold out quickly. This was the Kardashians' move for the longest time. It's easy to sell out if you don't have a lot of product available in the first place. And based on how chaotic the introduction of this launch was, I suspect that's exactly the case. The strategy is called scarcity marketing or artificial scarcity, and it creates the illusion of high demand by limiting supply, making a product seem more exclusive or desirable. This tactic is, used all the time here in Hollywood.
But more than that, at the risk of wanting to sound grumpy as I become 60, she was once the Duchess of Sussex, and now I'm sitting here talking about her bloody jam. Nobody should give a shit. It's ridiculous.
No, you're absolutely right. But she sat down with the New York Times to promote this and said, I have to work. Well, that's what happens when you marry someone that has little to no ambition.
I agree.
You do have to work.
I agree.
And, she's trying to justify all of these different outlets and moving parts by saying, I just have to work.
They haven't had a good time. His charity engulfed by cash fears, insiders claim. There's going to be more coming out on that. And then the Netflix stuff. I love this. This is just, to me, sums it up again. Those working on her launch, her as-ever launch, admit we're over it. It wasn't a great experience. Do you think there will ever be a moment where Harry and Meghan ever get some good publicity, Kent?
Well, I mean, maybe, because they did ask those exact same people to sign NDAs to keep secrets, surrounding this. But that's what Meghan's trying to do by limiting the supply of goods and being able to say she sold out by shooting 2 series back to back and being able to go online while people are destroying her, saying, guess what? We got a season 2. You didn't get a season 2. It already existed. Netflix is desperate to get any type of money back from you. The return on investment has not been there. So she's trying to create, and Jeremy, Prince Harry gave up his family, gave up his friends, hundreds of friends, gave up his entire lifestyle, his culture, the royal traditions. And Meghan can't even come out to defend her husband, who is being destroyed right now, is a bully from Bali, his own charity. I'm sorry, but Prince Harry, look in the mirror. Look at what you've given up for this selfish, totally self-consumed individual that doesn't even post pictures of you on her Instagram account.
Mate, I could not agree with that more. And as I said earlier in the week, the Centre Bali woman is a very powerful woman of colour who's a very successful woman. And all I've heard from both of those pair, they've dug into the royal family about racism and all those things. And sometimes, be careful what you wish for.
Duke of Sussex was hit out this morning at blatant lies about Centre Bali, the African charity at the centre of a race row, which he was, of course, the patron of until relatively recently when he resigned. The Charities Commission is now going to open a statutory inquiry into Centre Bali, thanks to the complaints made by Sophie Chandorkar, who, of course, has said that the Duke of Sussex is guilty of bullying her and using inappropriate and unpleasant language. Unbelievable stuff. Rupert Bell is here, Talk's royal correspondent. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This story has got some legs, hasn't it? Still going after about 5 days.
Yeah, and it's a sort of element of he said, she said, who said what. And so that's why the Charity Commission are now going to be investigating, brought about by Sophie Chandorkar, who said since the trustees resigned, to look at the governance. And one of the questions that the Prince Harry's team and the group of trustees has said, all this money that's been spent on consultants. On the other hand, Sophie Chandorkar has said the Prince Harry creates problems for the charity because they find it hard to get people to contribute to Centre Bali. So it's a really murky, messy sort of situation. And it really is sad because ultimately the people who are suffering are the people that Centre Bali is designed to help in Africa. Yeah. Because at the moment, I mean, if you're looking at a big donor, a charitable donor, you'd probably be questioning whether you should be giving money because there's all the infighting that has been going on. Well, at the moment, the fighting is quite clearly out there. It's a verbal war of words, it fears. But the Charity Commission, hopefully, will sort of give the correct picture of exactly what is going on. Sophie Chandorkar has said she's got nothing to hide.
Right, exactly. And Harry has issued a statement, which is unusual because we had said until yesterday he's not really said much about this whole situation. He says, I've had a clear goal to support the children and young people in Southern Africa in memory of our mothers. What has transpired over the last week has been heartbreaking to witness, especially when such blatant lies hurt those who have invested decades in this shared goal. Well, he may say that, but I mean, he's now resigned as the head of the charity, so he's obviously not got that goal anymore.
Well, no, but he would like to get it back, and ultimately he wanted to say that Sophie Chandorkar should resign, and then he could, the trustees could appoint someone new. But one of the reasons that the problems for Harry is that there are sort of suggestions that he was putting pressure on Sophie Chandorkar to put out positive statements about him and Meghan following that polo match last April, where, of course, there was all the hoo-ha around the presentation of the trophy, and that seemed to be a reason why their relationship broke down. So it's just a very unseemly mess. But once again, Harry in the spotlight for probably all the wrong reasons. Now, it might in the end prove that he has a case, but at the moment, if you look at the facts, once again, Harry has embroiled himself something, and blatant lies, let's be honest, recollections may vary, is one of the statements that was put very firmly to Harry and Meghan back in the day over various things that they had said. So at the moment, you have to take it all sort of with a sort of guarded view of it, because it's a mess, and
it is.
And Harry again has got himself in a position where he's in the spotlight for the wrong reasons. It is interesting though that his wife hasn't actually leapt to his defence here, where he's always leaping to her defence. No, she said nothing. She's too busy worrying about what to do with raspberry jam pots when they've been used. So,
well, I was saying yesterday, obviously now that if you want to buy some of that raspberry jam, which I understand you can't because she only made about 10 pots of it and it's all sold out, you'd have to add a 10% tariff onto it now because it'll be coming from the US of A into Britain, right? So it now costs £12.10 now, not £11.
Well, the honey's even more expensive.
Yeah, 22 quid for that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we're not sure of the provenance of the honey, but it must be the best honey that's going available in America, I would have thought.
Well, indeed. I've never been a fan of American honey, to be honest. It's not one of the things they do well.
Let's talk to Rupert Bell now, Talk's royal correspondent, to talk about the latest. There's always a latest, isn't there, with Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. A very, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. Welcome to Aintree. Sorry, I've got helicopters flying all over me at the moment.
Of course you do.
you know,
It's head of the Grand National this weekend. Yeah, I love it. People who don't know, and how do you not know this, that of course Rupert is a top racing correspondent, and frankly, you prefer that as your day job to the royal side of things, do you not?
Well, it's a little distraction, but Meghan it just keeps on giving with her raspberry jam,
and her bath bombs and like. Well, look, let's talk. There's two stories related to them. Prince Harry back in court next week. This is a Court of Appeal, and this is all over his demand for the taxpayer to provide the police and security when he visits the UK. He hasn't brought. I mean, Meghan, I think they came back for funerals things, but otherwise, the kids, they've not been back. He claims he cannot make sure that his wife and family are secure. Of course, he lives in a country where everyone has a gun. He seems to be fine about that. But what is the latest stage of this court case?
Well, there's going to be an appeal next week. And what's, I think, frustrating to a lot of people is thinking, well, of course he will have a degree of security when he comes here. No one's going to be saying that wherever he goes and stays at a Royal Windsor or Buckingham Palace, security's there anyway. There's knee-deep in security. Yeah. So I think it seems to me to be a convenient excuse at times to say, I don't want to come back to England, because I'm pretty sure Meghan's not busting a gut to get on a plane back to this country unless she can tell me otherwise. So I feel it's a bit of an excuse. But yes, security he's got to be mindful of security, but they're mindful of all members of the royal family.
Isn't the argument about being armed? So he can bring his own security, and it's a huge cost. And one of his arguments about why they need to make money is because they need to have security, and they do need security. Of course they do. Even just for being famous, they need security. But they also need security because he fought in Afghanistan, and because he is the son of the king. Whether he's part of the royal line, in working royals, it doesn't matter. He's the son of the king. He is a target. And my view is just for those two reasons. I mean, one of which he was worked out half of our country in Afghanistan, and because of his birth, which he has no control over, I think we should provide him with security. This is one thing, I mean, I actually support him on. But there are times when he wants his security to have weapons. They can only do that if they are authorised by the British police, and that needs the Home Office to agree to it. I think his ask is completely reasonable on this for once in my life.
Well, I think the thing is, I think he would always be afforded a degree of security. He's just got to let people know what he's doing, because I'm absolutely sure he is not going to be left with no security should he come here. But as long as he briefs people where he's coming, what he's doing, then I think it's probably likely to happen. What the defence from the Home Office is as he's no longer a working member of Royal, he comes into a different category. Yeah. And that's where the grey area is about. But I'm pretty sure that he is never going to be left without security, because it wouldn't be sensible.
Well, thing is, the Home Office might think he comes into a different category. I don't think that's how ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah or any other terrorists see it. I just don't think that's how they see it. He's the son of the king. He's a target. He fought in Afghanistan. He talked about the killings in Afghanistan. I think he needs security. But there we are. Whatever the cost it ends up being. But again, he doesn't come back very often anyway, does he? Let's talk about Meghan, Meghan, by the way, Rupert wants to know if you do want to come back to England or not. Seriously, at any time, give us a call. We'll put you on air. I'm not Oprah Winfrey, but we're happy to have you if you want. Now, she, of course, had this absurd documentary series, this Netflix series, her lifestyle brand. With Love, Meghan. I managed to last 5 minutes before I lost the will to live. We made watch all episodes. Don't even know how many there were, but you almost lost your mind. Your frustration talking about it was a joy to behold. My favourite interview of the last year. But she's now launched her lifestyle range as ever, and there are 8 products, including 11-pound jars of ham, marked as sold out on the website within half an hour of going live. Who's buying this nonsense?
Well, how many do they actually sell before they put the sold out sign?
If you've got 5, you might sell them out.
And the thing is, what we've been told is that these jam jars was raspberry spread. It's she's got elevated uses for them.
What does that mean?
Well, basically what she says is you can fill them with love tokens and leave them around the house once you've used them. You can put pencils in them. Who knew what you do with
with an old jam jar? We've all got cupboards of old jam jars. I love the fact. I mean, her wildflower honey with honeycomb is priced at $28 for the love of God. I mean, herbal tea mixes for $12. I mean, it is extraordinary. I don't know if there's the bath bomb that she spent it. I only got to the beginning of the bath bomb bit in the Netflix series. But then, look, this is all about making money. This is all about rebranding herself. But I mean, she does have a brand. There are people who love her and literally, Team Sussex, the Sussex squad, what they call. They literally wait on everything she does. But is she going to make money out of this, given the lifestyle that they lead? Does she have enough?
Well, the thing is, we're now seeing lots of stuff of her on Instagram. We've seen recently of her cooking with her mother in their house in Montecito. She says she didn't want the camera crew filming the programme because she's got 80 production staff. Well, jeepers creepers. No, that is an awful lot of people chopping up the vegetables for her in someone else's house.
Hey,
But
you need a
now
lot of people to arrange those bits of fruit in a rainbow pattern. Come on.
And open those packets of pretzels. The most important thing, though, is what we are seeing is the fact that her house, and what I think is probably happening to some extent, is we're getting, she wants people to believe in her lifestyle. She lives in this gilded lifestyle. Is it something that she wants people to aspire to her lifestyle? But she lives like nobody else. 99% of the population of this world do not live like her.
And that's the thing. And again, it is also at a time when people are really struggling here and in America with inflation, with problems. Read the room, lady. This is not what people are looking at. And we'll see how well it does. It'll be fascinating. Well, I'm assuming we'll get to see her accounts at some point. Rupert Bell, always good to talk to you. You get back to the horses where you're happy. Our royal correspondent there at Aden Street. Philip Ingram, will you be buying some $28 wildflower honey with honeycomb?
Definitely not. I've got better honey sources.
That sounded so suspicious.
Slightly less, but not much less. But
I'm too tight for this stuff.
But she's I take my hat off to her. I admire her enormously. Her marketing strategy is superb. She's just had you and Rupert giving her 15 minutes of advertising.
I always
for nothing.
feel ashamed. I always have to go home and sort of whip myself for being that I should not encourage this, and we really should never talk about them ever again. So I know that's what we should do, but I can't stop myself.
All our listeners and all watching will be suddenly go, oh, I need to look at that and go onto her website. Her stats.
They're not going to buy it. They're going to look at it and laugh at it. Put it on Instagram or X and laugh at it, aren't they?
Front page of the Sunday Telegraph, but it's kind of everywhere. Harry is a bully, says charity chief. Centre Barley chairman accuses Duke of using the press for harassment at scale. But who's right on this? Do you have any sympathy for Harry? Do you think this time maybe it's gone a little bit too far? Let's find out what the royal commentator Angela Levin has to say about it. Angela, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Talk. So, look, he's kind of done it again, ended up on the front pages. There's a bit of me that says, well, when all the trustees stepped down, I thought there's probably another side to this. I think there is another side to this. We've now heard from the chair of the charity trustees, who, of course, is defending their position. And Piers Pottinger, who I was speaking to just before, had a little bit of sympathy for Harry, saying, well, maybe we got somebody who just got a little bit above their station in terms of what they wanted to do, and it's caused all these problems. What would you say to that? Who's at fault?
Well, I don't think you can say who is at fault. I think it's a most extraordinary fighting match between them. I think Harry hasn't been used to anybody telling him to stop doing something or that he was doing something wrong. Apart from Meghan, people have been scared, and they've been very scared of Meghan as well, because what happens is this absolutely bomb of the Sussex Brigade, which actually Dr. Sophie Chandra-Dorku said. She is now the wondering or hoping that she can stay as chair because she wants to do this. And Harry has said that he would like to come back when she's gone. So this is a long time thing. And
it is, but as a charity chair of trustees, if you lose the confidence of the other trustees, then it's not like a job. You do have to go.
Well, yes, that's true, except that she said that she felt that so many of the people who were part of that have been there sort of 12, 15 years, and you don't have any freshness You don't have new thoughts. You don't have people who want to make it even better in these years, because it's very different from how the place started years ago. And actually, it's true, because then it was all about orphans from parents who had died of terrible diseases and HIV. So that now it's much more, learning how to cope with work and doing things. So I can understand why you would want different people. But what actually is very wrong is that Harry decided to leave without telling her. I think that's dreadful. He didn't say anything to her that he was going. And the other thing is, which goes back to last year, which I wondered about earlier, was that she was, if you remember the polo game, which was money for the charity, and Meghan didn't want her to stand next to Harry, and Meghan was being very angry and pointing and being cross, and he wanted her to come the other side of her, away from Harry, so she couldn't hold the award. Now, after that, they made a big fuss that she should go and speak to the press and say, Meghan wasn't mean to me, and support her and say how lovely she was. Well, she wasn't going to do that, so she refused. So there's that darkness around Meghan.
And isn't it interesting that you know, this is not about aspects of governance or otherwise. This is about somebody who's either, loosely involved or partly involved, and it's all about sort of personality and how people are dealt with and where they stand with the pictures and bits and pieces. And also, I suppose, deference, that if you are chair of a group of charity trustees, you do expect to be able to chair that organisation regardless of how famous or supportive or anything else any of the individuals might be, and so managing that ego. But you know this better than most. How difficult or otherwise is working for Harry and Meghan? I mean, I guess one has to try and be objective, but how difficult is it, and why is it difficult?
Well, it's a nightmare, because Meghan thinks that she's very, very important in the world, and she's got to do what she wants, and she's got to be right. So if you're doing something for her, you're never really very good. And Harry is full of anger and resentment, and I think that it is very difficult. I've been attacked by the squad, Sussex squad, and I know loads of journalists who have as well. If you don't actually say how wonderful Meghan is and you aren't nice about her, then you are bullied, and it's very nasty bullying.
Okay, so how does that manifest? So for people listening, and you say, well, you've been the target of it, so clearly, of course, you've written various things in the past, so it does get sort of more public prominence. But how does that, attack, if you like, how does it manifest itself? Is it behind the scenes? Is it stuff that we see? Is it stories that suddenly appear?
No,
what is it?
It's emails and getting in touch with you in various ways. And actually, I've been, someone's going to come and kill me, someone's going to rape me, I stink, I'm revolting. It's all that. And although you push it aside, it does worry you actually who's doing it. And they can be very ghastly. I know somebody who they then set up an organisation that actually would make them feel that they were completely hopeless. And I think that that's very much coming from Meghan. And Harry now she's brought out in him his aggression and his feeling that he's not doing what he really wanted. And so that it's very nasty. And Meghan, she was calling people up at 3 or 4 in the morning, asking them to do something, and never satisfied, very angry with what she was given. And Harry just trails along, because the main thing to him is people have got to love Meghan, and he is very scared of her. And so if she gets furious that someone said something about her, maybe all this nonsense she's doing of selling clothes and all that, she just goes mad. She just goes really angry.
Okay, so what happens next with all of this? I mean, I'm assuming that there's going to be some kind of investigation, but I can't imagine that this stays, with Harry as a bully, says charity chief. We've had 2 interviews now, one on Sky News, one elsewhere, I think. She said what she said. It's unlikely that Harry is going to remain silent, is it?
No, he won't remain silent, but then neither will she. She's a very coherent, clever, educated woman, and she's not going to be taken for a ride or talked to as if she's got nothing to say. No, I think the thing is they can't say that she's a racist. That's a big deal. That they usually call everyone who's negative about what they say, oh, they're a racist, even when they're just saying what they don't like. And I think that's, she avoids that. But there should be a meeting for them, but she's taking them to court at the moment. So that will cost an awful lot of money and probably take over masses of money from the charity. So it's very bad, but she's very determined that they're not going to let Harry get away with it. But Harry has loved that charity since he came out of school, and it's very important to him because it links him to his late mother. But he should have told her, they should have sat down, maybe had a row, maybe talked properly and worked out how they could do something instead of him just saying, I'm going, I'm not here, we've walked off. And then she's got to make sure that people don't think she's terrible. I mean, there are questions about this. She wants to be paid $2,000 a day, which I think is an extraordinary amount of money when you're working on that. But Harry hasn't been there for 5 or 6 years. And so, you can't do that from America into Africa. So it is a terrible mess. But what interests me is the children who are there. If they're so busy arguing and fighting, what's going to happen to the children? They're the ones who need looking after. They're the ones who actually are the most important thing of the whole thing. And it will be very, very sad if they suffer rather than 2 sort of angry people who don't like being told what to do.
Kevin, I cannot believe the fallout from Senebale. I am truly surprised at the chaos that's happening right now. I don't know if it's because I had just settled into Meghan promo mode and I was just waiting to get jars of jam thrown at my face along with whatever else. But I am truly surprised that Prince Harry is having such a crap 2 weeks. What do you think?
I mean, the thing about Harry's, I've been trying to work this out, and in some ways, I say this very cautiously, but I kind of feel slightly sorry for him because he's not a clever man, he's not an intelligent guy, but he's trapped within his own culture, his own privilege, his own background. So he's so dim that he didn't really spot that a bunch of billionaires, quaffing champagne, playing polo in Florida, to raise money for dirt poor black African kids is a really, really bad look. It is the quintessence of white saviorism. And Harry is so thick, he couldn't see that. He's so dumb, he couldn't work that out. Now, we're all for raising money for kids who need it. And Senebale was a good charity, is a good charity. A lot of kids lost their parents due to AIDS and HIV. A lot of kids themselves have AIDS or HIV because of the problems there in Africa back in years gone by. So it's a good charity. And raising money for it was a good thing to do. But these days, you have to be careful about the way you do that. Because the way Harry was going about it was as if there was some kind of natural pecking order, that the superior people, the people at the top, were so kind that they're going to have a polo match to raise money for those poor little people at the bottom of the social scale. Now, Prince William, for example, is intelligent enough to spot those problems, and he goes to the ends of the earth not to let it happen. Do you remember when they went to the Caribbean, him and Kate, a few years back, and he got corralled into standing in the back of a sort of Land Rover, waving at the adoring crowds, and sort of kids trying to put their little local kids trying to put their fingers through a wire barrier to get, and it was a very, very bad look. And William spotted that, and he hated it. Everybody spotted it. And he's reorganised royal tours because of it. Harry isn't quite as perceptive as his brother. He's not as intelligent as his brother. Everybody knows that. And so he's been staging these awful fundraising events that look so bad. And still trapped within his own kind of bubble, his own privileged bubble. I think we're gaining a picture now that he has got no idea how to deal with people like Dr. Sophie Chandorka, the chairwoman of Centre Ballet, who obviously doesn't take any crap from anyone and is putting this guy, this ginger prince, right in his place. And she obviously said, this is what the heart of this dispute is that resulted in Harry leaving. It is this, that Sophie was very uncomfortable about the way the money was being raised, the fundraising efforts. And she wanted to bring fundraising into Africa, to make Africa the centre of Centre Ballet's fundraising efforts. Harry rejected that. Oh no, I want to play polo. I want to have champagne with my friends and bring Meghan, and lovely, and it'd be fantastic, raise money, you know. So she obviously has said, look, this is uncomfortable, this is wrong. But Harry can't see it. And, you know, we've all seen that terrible moment where all of a sudden Harry brings Meghan along, unannounced, so they didn't quite know. So at the end of the polo match, at the sort of cup presenting moment, you know, there's Meghan on the stage and then Dr. Sophie trying to get on the stage as well. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Everybody saw it and said, what on earth is going on here? Harry imperiously instructs Dr. Sophie to put out a statement defending Meghan. And she said, quite rightly, well, A, no, I'm not going to do it. And B, if you want to know why, it's because this is Centre Ballet. We're not a cheerleading operation for a brand Meghan, for a brand Harry and Meghan. That's not what we do. Now, when Harry learned that Dr. Sophie had said, no, I'm not going to put out a statement, what did he say? He said to her, would you care to explain yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, this
apparently
is just
unpleasant and imperious messages
it's
to
white
her.
saviorism is what it is. It is, I'm the big white chief. And how dare this woman of colour stand up to me? I'm afraid, look, let's call it unconscious, because I think it is unconscious. But what we're talking about here is racism, unconscious, biased racism. And Harry, quite clearly to my mind, is as guilty as sin of this. I think it is dawning on him and he is horrified. He cannot believe it. But I think he knows it's true. He is in a world of trouble, and I have no idea how he can get out of it. Richard Kay wrote in the Daily Mail this week, you know, where is his royal brand now? His royal brand in 1 week flat has been utterly ruined. And by extension, that's not going to do Meghan any good at all. They stand accused of everything they've accused everybody else of. Suddenly, they're the racists. So good luck with that, Harry.
There's a really great article from The Cut magazine that discusses Prince Harry's relationship with racism, and they accuse him of only acknowledging racism when it directly affects him or his family. But otherwise, you know, they say one of the lines from the magazine is, it's telling that Harry didn't take a persistent stand against the British press's racism until the tabloids came after his wife and the problem became personal. Despite Harry's insistence on how much he's learned, Spare, this was their reaction to Spare, exposes his blind spots when it comes to race and the monarchy, and how much his complaints remain focused on his own experience. You know, I think that it kind of is similar to what you're saying, that Prince Harry is so blinded by his own anti.
His entire background, everything about him, his life. He is.
Yeah.
We're all in a way prisoners of our own life stories. A lot of people have the intelligence to step outside of that. I don't think Harry has got that. He can't spot it. Now, why? You know, when they started accusing the British press of having a go at Meghan because of her race. You know, because she's a woman of colour. Absolute crap. Total lies. Absolute lies. It was never racism. Nothing to do with racism. But why was Harry so keen on this? Well, Meghan, her entire life, as far as I can work out, has always found new and imaginative ways to play the victim card. You know, and she sucked Harry into that world. Harry, really difficult for the fifth in line to the British throne, who, you know, was born into this world, a multi-millionaire, will never know worries about money, will spend all his life in palaces, flying around in private jets. Very difficult for a guy like that to play the victim card. Suddenly, oh, this is a bit of luck. I've got a wife who is a woman of colour. Therefore, she's a victim because she's a victim of racism, and by extension, so am I. I'm a victim too. Hooray! I've found a way to be a victim, which is what Sophie Chandorka is talking about. He said he plays the victim card all the time. Well, after this spat, this furious fallout with Dr. Sophie Chandorka, we are never going to have to hear this nonsense from this privileged young man that he is somehow, I say young, middle-aged man now, that he is somehow a victim. And frankly, looking back on it, how dare he ever have played the victim card? And how dare
you're absolutely right. Because The Cut found a couple of tweets that I was surprised by. One says, I think the sooner we all understand that Harry and his wife are not taking a stance against his colonialist family, but are just upset about not being able to participate in the way that they thought they would be able to, the freer we'll all be. Another said, Meghan and Harry are doing all this, not because they want to dismantle colonialism, but because they were not accepted by it. This social phenomenon is interesting and begs the question, what if the royals had embraced them? The public would be cheering for diversity and inclusion, ? So, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with those, but I am glad that somebody, I don't agree to the full extent. I don't think there's anything racist about the royal family today, but I do believe that the reason we saw such a meltdown from Harry and Meghan is because they felt excluded. They felt excluded. They were insecure, and that was all that it is. You know, I don't think that there was any. I don't think anyone meant anything mean-spirited when members of the family asked what the baby would look like. Chris Rock did a great piece on it, which ended up on Netflix, one of his shows, about how everybody speculates about what a baby's going to look like. But, you know, there was a pretty petty turn last night when I was just checking out the headlines surrounding this, Kevin. And it was Prince Harry giving one of his friends from Eton, Alex Rayner, permission basically to talk on his behalf. He says, H is very happy for me to speak for him about how he feels about this awful situation. And he says Harry's heartbroken, and it's like he lost his finger. I'd say he lost something, but it's below the belt, and they're probably in a jam jar sitting in the kitchen right now. I don't know if it's his finger, but he also says that he believes some of the accusations from Dr. Sophie may possibly spring from jealousy of Prince Harry's wife, Meghan. Alex told the Daily Mail, it feels like she had her nose put out of joint because she was not the most important woman of color on the stage. How immature. I mean,
Shocking. It's a shocking thing to say, Kinsey. Let me just say this. I'll tell you, it's a racist thing to say.
that's what I was thinking.
As if women of colour all fight with each other to be the top woman of colour at any event. It's a racist thing to say, a disgusting thing to say as well, demeaning to Dr. Chandorka. She doesn't deserve that. What on earth does Harry think he's playing at? Putting forward his mates, his posh mates, to speak to him. I would have said, if I was advising Prince Harry, and for the right fee, I'm available, by the way, if you're watching Your Majesty or whatever you call yourself.
Well, wait, I didn't want to interrupt you before, but I will interrupt you now. The fact, I don't know if we've had this discussion, and we'll have, and it relates to something down below too in our rundown. But the fact that Harry and Meghan are asking Dr. Sophie to defend them tells me that they are watching every single thing that's said and written about them, Kevin, because that video was not circulated on Inside or Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight or those puffy outlets that kiss their butt. That video wasn't circulated there. It was people like you and I that had those conversations about how weird the video was. They are reading and listening to everything. There's your problem. Get a freaking job. You have too much time on your hands.
Exactly right. Get a job and get a life. As I was saying, I would advise Harry, it's too late now, but don't go near this argument. Don't start fighting with Dr. Sophie Chandorka in public because it's already going pear-shaped. What that guy Alex Rayner said is an absolute disgrace. And if I was Harry pretty soon, I would say, well, Alex Rayner said that I entitled him to speak for me. I didn't. Because that is a really bad thing, what Rayner said. Oh, it's about women of colour fighting. Absolutely disgraceful. But, you know, Harry doesn't stand a chance in this fight, in this dispute. Because, you know, Dr. Sophie Chandorka is a woman, very obviously a woman of great achievement. She's a lawyer. She's worked for Meta. She's worked for all sorts of top organisations. She's African. She's from Zimbabwe. She's a woman of colour.
She's the third highest. Her family's the third highest donor for Senebale.
Well, how can Harry argue with this woman? How can he justify himself getting into a public spat with this woman? He should never have let this guy Rayner go public. Absolutely terrible decision. The latest of Harry's dreadful decisions. As Richard Kay said in the Daily Mail, what price his royal brand now? What price the Sussex brand? Is it worth anything? Because Meghan was busy destroying it, you know, by cashing in and selling out, literally selling her royal self. Oh, buy my spoons, buy my towels. Really tacky, really tawdry. And then this row, frankly, in which, well, it's not frankly, it's a matter of fact, he's accused of racism, bullying, misogynoir, nice new word for us, hatred of black women, you know, the whole lot, mismanagement, everything. So Harry's reputation right now is in the toilet. It has never been worse. So take that, add it to old saleswoman Meg, buy this, buy that, you know, rag and bone lady flogging everything she can on the back of her alleged royal status, which is pretty low anyway. And what an awful couple. What do they think they're doing? You know, so their brand, I would maintain, is at rock bottom and will struggle to recover.
So that wasn't all that Alex Rayner said. He said that he talked about how Dr. Sophie refused to defend Meghan Markle. By the way, I hope to God we see those text messages that Prince Harry sent to her, because Senebale does acknowledge that they exist, but they told the media that they did not have permission to share the text messages, a spokesperson for Senebale. So we know that they exist. I am curious to see them, I would love to see them. But Alex Rayner said the chair should never have let that narrative take hold, that Meghan had caused an issue. If that narrative did take hold, then I would argue it is down to the chair to put it right. They could have issued a statement and put a stop to it, but they did not. Why? Again, the whole thing smells. It feels planned, and I suspect that the whole thing could only have come from the chair herself. I think that the Princess of Wales, Catherine, is the perfect example of you can't control the narrative. You can't control the internet. Even if she did step up and say, nothing was weird, nothing happened, there would be people that would assume that Prince Harry and Meghan asked her to step in and defend her. The same way that I said to you, I think Ted Sarandos was told by the Sussexes, you need to step out and defend Meghan, after hundreds of people went off about how crappy her television show was.
Hundreds.
Yeah, thousands, okay?
Many thousands. Yeah.
So I do think that this is a regular occurrence, that Harry and Meghan ask people to defend them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And I don't think that was her role.
Image. Yeah.
Yeah.
Constantly polishing their own image. As you say, I think you're absolutely right, Kinsey. They are unhealthily obsessed with themselves and their image and what people write. I've known a few long-term famous people in my life, people like Paul McCartney and they'll tell you, you just have to get to the point where you don't bother with it. You just get on with your life. If you obsess on everything that's ever written, every picture that's ever published of you, that way madness lies. Mm-hmm. And there's something slightly unhinged about these Sussexes right now.
I agree.
Very odd. Harry's spinning out of control. He's got nothing to do now. Was it Hadley Freeman in the Sunday Times this week wrote that he's one of these interesting. He has an interesting new role. He is a member of the strange new breed of the husband of the influencer, and that's basically it.
I mean, imagine him just following Meghan Markle around, taking her picture with an iPhone. It makes me want to kill myself. Yeah. I hate that for him.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy with the camera in the background while his wife flogs stuff. It's not a nice spectacle. And if we go back to, when they first escaped from this country, here over
escaped,
Brexit and all. Don't forget, they then announced they were going to change the world. The Archwell would change the world for the better. So what have we got? What is it now? 7 years on from their marriage. What is it? About 4 or 5 years on from Megxit. We've got a sort of cheap and tawdry woman selling tat online and on social media. And some guy accused of being a bullying, colonial, white saviour racist with nothing to do in his life. Hasn't really worked out for them, has it?
No, Prince Harry did release a video today for Travelist, celebrating 5 years of Travelist. And I kind of laughed, thinking, I never even think about Travelist as a serious entity, considering the fact that you're the first person to jump on a private plane at every opportunity. So Travelist is his travel company, their initiative, or their campaigning to change the way we travel, to be more thoughtful of the environment when we travel. And I'm just like, you know what, Harry, I don't know if you're necessarily the right person to front this.
Yeah. Well, this is it. But for both of them, the whole world, or most of the world, has had enough of their rank, arrant hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Do as we say, not as we do. You must go on ecological holidays, vacations. You must be careful about the carbon footprint trail that you leave. But as for us, we'll just get onto private jets.
Yeah.
Never mind that. We'll do what we want to do. We're imperious, if I can use that word. Imperiously instructing us how to behave while they have no intention of following their own orders. We have to follow their orders, but they won't. People are sick of that. And I keep hearing how many zillions of dollars that Meghan's going to make once she really gets into business, with As Ever and everything is up for sale. Well, let's see. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. You can turn popularity into money. Can you turn unpopularity into money?
Infamy.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about Meghan a bit, but I don't want to stray too far from Harry because I'd like you to respond to this quote from page 6. It says, "This new boss lady approach will certainly be needed if Prince Harry, 40, is to build upon his role as a global statesman." I'm sorry if that made you vomit in your mouth, especially in a week. Especially in a week when he was forced to step down my ass from his beloved African charity, Senebale. So talk to me about Harry's odds at being a global statesman while being accused of bullying a self-made, highly intelligent, ambitious woman of color from her chair position, a woman that was on his board for 6 years, so they were familiar with her. And I also want to know, on top of that, consider the fact that African Parks Charity is in perpetual trouble, whether it's SA allegations or a woman was trampled and her baby died.
10 people trampled to death only last weekend.
Yes.
By a herd of elephants that they released in the wrong place. And as you say, allegations against rangers who work for African Parks. This again is a charity that Harry is connected with, it's close to his heart. So everything he touches turns to crap. He's got
so talk to me about his odds at becoming a global statesman. Realistically, what can he do? Can he do it just because of his proximity to the British royal family, or does his reputation affect that?
Well, no, he can't become a global statesman. He's more like a sort of global doorman for his wife. He's a bag carrier. That's all he does now. As you say, holds the camera and films her while she tries to flog us some more crap. So he can't be a global statesman. He hasn't got the wherewithal. He hasn't got the intellect. He hasn't got the charisma. He hasn't got the presence. He hasn't got the intelligence. There's no way this guy can be any kind of a global statesman. Carry on with the Invictus Games. That's an excellent project and does great work. I hope you get African Parks back together. But you've run away from Senebale, which I think you were hasty to do, Harry. I think you should have thought about this. You want to set up a charity in your mother's name, you should think about it. You should think about your mother when you hightail it and run. And to go back to Harry, so no chance of being an international statesman. Do me a favour. But to go back to what's gone wrong with Sophie Chandorka, so, as you say, there's this impression that's been left that somehow or other, she's suddenly come along and Harry and the other trustees have gone, oh, she's awful, let's go. Well, no, she's been working there 6 years. As you say, her family are the biggest donors to Senebale. So she's not fly-by-night. And I think that clearly their relationship has got worse and worse and worse. And what Harry can't take, because he's a bit of a white saviour in the end, possibly unconsciously biased racist. He's the one, he accuses all the rest of us of having unconscious bias and therefore being racist. I say there's a strong possibility, very strong, that Harry suffers from exactly that syndrome because of his background.
I also want to say, and I don't know how much we've gone into this, but I've heard through Invictus sources, and I wonder how much this has to do with Senebale too, that Meghan has made decision-making incredibly hard. That obviously Harry has to approve everything, but now Harry, while he's sitting there communicating, like you and I communicating one-on-one, Harry can't just say, yeah, that sounds great. He has to leave the meeting, take it back to Meghan, who of course is difficult, wants to make changes, doesn't understand that idea, doesn't like that idea. And people at Invictus behind the scenes are complaining about this entity that is making life a living hell. And I wonder how much that was happening at Cenobale too, where Harry, well, I mean, we know Dr. Sophie tells us she would just show up for a meeting and Harry would be like, this guy's on the board now. And she'd be like, what? Who is this person? You're just your friend? You know, like I think that Harry and Meghan are entitled, but I also think that Meghan adds this additional element of, well, I want my voice to be heard. I'm going to have an opinion here. And poor Prince Harry, not really, tiptoes around this woman that he chose to marry, that he voluntarily married, the dictator in heels, and doesn't want to get in trouble with her. So it takes longer to make decisions. They have to change a lot of things that they didn't necessarily want. Look at the fact that it took this woman over a year to produce a new podcast. How long have we been waiting for As Ever to launch? How long did it take for her to transition American Riviera Orchard to As Ever? She's a terrible decision maker. She is not an assertive person, and she's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, exactly right. And Sophie Chandorka, I think, came to the point where she'd had enough of Harry's imperious ways, had enough of Meghan's influence on Harry. This ludicrous decision once when they had a Miami venue all ready to roll, and he suddenly at the last moment said, "Oh, I want to bring a Netflix crew." You know, they got all these sponsors and companies involved. You can't just bring a major television company to an event and expect all the commercial sponsors to go, "Oh, that's just fine." It completely changes the dynamic. So, if nothing else, he's imperious, but he's also incredibly naive, no idea about the real world. Old Sophie got more and more fed up with this, and of course, she is now turned into his worst nightmare. Someone who will not take his crap. She won't take it. And she is kicking him all over the ballpark right now. He's losing this badly because I think, I can tell that Sophie's one of those people, who also wants her own way. Nothing wrong with that. So you've got a very strong-willed person, but she's good at what she does. She's a great talker, and Harry has got no comeback. I think he feels so hemmed in. Oh my God, people say, I'm a racist now. This is the worst thing ever. But, I married Meghan. I can't be a racist. All this nonsense. But he's got no way out. And in a really stupid, childish, adolescent fit of pique, he's let this bozo, Alex Rayner, come out. You tell them. You tell them that she's wrong and I'm right. Well, that hasn't worked out at all well. That is really, really a bad look. So he's squirming. He's doing stupid things. He can't handle this situation. His best bet would be to shut up, put up, and back out. But I don't think Meghan will let him do that.
No, I think we would see Meghan defending him if she weren't trying to sell her, tat right now. Really quickly, 2 more questions before I let you go. Does it surprise you that Page 6 reports that Meghan was all set to use Aro at the beginning of this year? All the labels were printed, and then someone had to tell her. They had to sit down and tell her, you can't use this trademark. I mean, the due diligence is how is there such a lack of doing any homework?
She's useless. And apparently, when they went to her and said, look, this American Riviera, big trademark troubles. Sorry, you can't go into business. Apparently, she kind of exploded in rage because she cannot take bad news. So apparently, you have to wrap it up and say, well, Your Majesty, or whatever she called herself. The great news is we can move on to a different name.
Right.
Brilliant.
Which she basically, they said she refused.
She maintained that she had As Ever all along.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say. So.
Well, she's not admitting faults, which is what she promised she was going to do in her cute little podcast. I'm going to, I make some bumps along the way. Yeah, but I did like the quote about asked if Markle has reacted to the headlines to brand changes. The brand changes have garnered. The insider replied she is capable of throwing a fit. I feel like, Kevin, that sounds a lot like a lot of other stories we've heard of Meghan Markle.
Oh, really? I mean, the tyrant in high heels who reduced grown men to tears and was prone to 5 a.m. tantrums. Both the Hollywood Reporter and Vanity Fair, two very respected publications, no ifs, no buts, said this woman is the bullying boss from hell, who reduces her staff, men, to tears, let alone the women. And also one employee had to go into long-term therapy.
Treat people the way you want to be treated is basically the way I deal with it.
Exactly. She doesn't get that. She's a narcissist. She's so up her own backside, full of herself. Everything is all about her. She will be unhappy right now because the racism, bullying, misogynoir row, the colonial white saviorism row, engulfing Harry, will reflect on her. I mean, she's at the centre of it because, of course, of the awkward video with Sophie. So she's at the centre of this, and it will reflect badly on As Ever and all her other tacky money-making operations and enterprises at the moment. So she won't be happy either.
You're right. She's angry right now. We saw that in the Netflix series when she told the cameras that she was angry that the takeaway from the Oprah Winfrey interview was not her mental health, but the royal racism scandal, which is like, what? What? You knew exactly what you were doing.
Of course she did. Of course she did. Her mental health.
But it does say narcissism when you think about it.
She's look. You got to be slightly careful here. I don't know about her mental health struggles. I don't know how genuine they are. Piers Morgan says they're one big pack of lies and sacrificed his job on the altar of that. Said, I will not rescind that. So a lot of people think, you might think this, Kinsey, but I couldn't possibly comment, that it's not only her race she uses or her mixed race status she uses to play the victim card. She also conjures up mental health difficulties, mental health issues. Whether or not she's got mental health issues, who can tell? But it's a good way of saying, I'm the victim.
We know that she has all the money in the world to have really incredible resources, and we hope she's found those, if that is indeed the case.
She's 8 and 9 of the Sun. Meghan Markup is what they're calling it. This is Meghan and her new venture where she's selling jam, herbal tea, cookie mix, honey, £22 for a jar of honey, by the way. And it's got a nice, lovely little label on it which says As Ever, which, of course, is the name of her new business.
Yes. Well,
I mean, what a load of old cobblers.
Well, as ever, she never ceases to amaze us here.
My favourite line in the story is this. In an accompanying interview, Prince Harry's wife, 43, was said to be clearly bothered by critics mocking her show and viewers dubbing her out of touch. And then it says, speaking from her £12 million mansion in Montecito, California, Meghan said, it's not fair! It's not fair! I'm not out of touch! Harry! Harry! I mean, for God's sake. I mean, crepe mix, £11.
It's madness. It's absolutely madness. I mean, it also says that she hopes to cash in on her own, on her Netflix cookery show. And I think to myself, well, when you've got nothing else, as long as you've got hope.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly right. It's the hope that kills. Also, can I just correct you? It's not a cookery show. It's a show about Meghan Markle opening things and putting them on plates. It's not actually, she's not actually cooking anything, I don't think, from what I can gather.
But it is, I mean, it's madness. I mean, what does she now stand for? I mean, who is Meghan Markle? I don't think anybody would be that mind, given all the things that have happened in the UK, and obviously, the fallout with the royal family here. But if she went back to being an actress, people I don't think would mind. That's her career. That's what she's
I mean, I've not watched Suits, but people said they quite liked it as a show. One of my kids actually watched it quite a lot and said it was quite a good show. She was, a part of the ensemble cast. But I mean, just have a do something for a living. Don't just stand about and be filmed with your made-up mates.
It's all about Netflix and what she can do next, whether it's about perfume, whether it's now about cooking. And she was doing a podcast, I think, at some point, talking about sort of, stronger women and sort of getting them in business, but didn't let them do any of the talking. It was all about about her.
Yeah, yeah.
You think, and you wonder why.
Right.
She gets such bad press and negative headlines when you don't know during a cost of living crisis that nobody is going to be rushing to buy your £11 jams.
Yes, which is even more expensive, apparently, by the way, than Fortnum and Mason's. And even the Buckingham Palace jam, which you can buy, is only £7. She's charging £11 for it. The Price's Treat is a limited edition wildflower honey with honeycomb, a luxurious drizzle-worthy indulgence costing £22.
Well, leaves a nasty taste in my mouth.
It does, absolutely right. Also, flour sprinkles, right? Have you ever used any flour sprinkles? I mean, it's not something I do, really. I sort of make myself some food at night, usually, with a spag bowl. I never go, should I put some flour sprinkles on it or not? I don't know.
Well, I'll be doing it after this.
The presentation's all that counts, really. Doesn't matter if it tastes awful. I mean, for God's sake, it just is ridiculous, isn't it?
The big story, and sometimes because of the other stuff I do, sometimes on a Thursday or Friday when a big story feels like, oh my God, Harry and Meghan.
The latest.
I mean, this Centre Bali boss, whose name escapes me for a
Sophie
second.
Chanduka, Dr. Sophie Chanduka.
You would have to say a lady of quite brilliant credentials who was handpicked to do this. I didn't know, she did the interview with Trevor Phillips.
Yeah.
I didn't know they go back a long way. Incendiary would be an understatement. I actually watched it. But what I said to David, and I'll repeat to you, for me, this sums up the hypocrisy of those two. I always remember saying, look, you disagree with the royal family, I happen to be a massive royalist, that's fine. Disappear, go and bring up your kids in America. I salute you for walking out of that, away from the bubble. But when you land, you sign this $100 million deal to slag off the very thing you don't want to be part of, you want to keep your titles, all of that. But the one thing, that the racism, the misogyny, the sexism, the immorality of the royal family, well, there you bloody well go. Right? This, let's be honest, this is the black woman running a charity in Africa in Harry's name, in his mother's memory. She has nothing to achieve by saying what she's achieved. What she's saying about him.
Said it incredibly forthrightly and incredibly articulately as well, and incredibly calmly. Obviously there's been a fallout, but if this stuff wasn't true, then you'd have Harry and Meghan coming out and saying it. And it's amazing, isn't it? So remember
they've said
about a year ago, they've said we will stop using royal sources or sources close to Harry and sources close to Meghan because we don't believe that's right and it's immoral, la la la. Because often Buckingham Palace or the royals won't want to specifically comment on a story, so they'll do sources. And they're saying we're not doing that. We'll only ever give on the record quotes from a spokesman for Harry and Meghan. And lo and behold, what do we get at this story? A source close to the Sussex saying it's not true. And well, if it's not true, go on the record and say that. Or will you be proven to be lying?
I wish you'd met the old man. As you know, he worked for the Queen Mother for 41 years. He said to me a couple of years before he died, he said to me, let me tell you, he'll be back in England with his ginger tail between his legs when she's had her fill, and she will absolutely use everything to make... I believe this boy is in severe... I talk about barking up the wrong tree.
Well,
they're horrible. I don't care what anybody says.
I just wonder how many bridges he's burnt here. And also, look, his father is unwell. He's not, he is an older man, and you just wonder, in a couple of decades' time, whether this would all be worth it.
I'll tell you something I do know. I happen to believe his dad isn't well. I agree with you. I'm not speculating. I'm being completely honest about that. I know this for a fact. His brother, right, will never forgive him.
No.
Never. And if Charles passes away in the next 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, there's no way back but a very miserable existence. But the thing for me is, Harry, right, this is classic. You want to go from being a royal to a celebrity, and then you want to moan and bitch about the response and the criticism you get. That is what comes with it. That is exactly with what... And her, honestly, mate,
Are you saying you won't be making her lemon-crusted Meghan's tart dessert?
Now, you haven't got any kids. I've got more than Boris Johnson. Let me tell you, with my hand on my heart, there has never been a bloody moment in my house where at 7:10 any morning, it's so nice to just make a plate of fruit and use some cottage cheese as clouds, you stupid, ridiculous woman. There's toast being flung past my nose. There's Marmite being sprayed across the walls. This is ludicrous rubbish. And honestly, you will get the truth here in the current bun. Honestly, I can't have them. And I don't understand how anybody could ever advise them? I can't imagine that they've ever listened to anybody.
I think that's the point that this woman was making, Dr. Sophie Chandoka was saying. She's saying that they don't listen to advice and they expect you to basically go out there and do their PR for them.
Yeah.
But it's not a two-way street. It's and history, sort of St James's Park and the gates of Buckingham Palace are littered with people who tried to go and work for them for a long time and didn't. And so, lo and behold, so is Netflix and all these other places they've gone to work.
It's
remarkable how they all fall out with everyone.
Proud to tell you, Oliver was the 5th person to put flowers against the gate at Windsor. You know, we lived on the Long Walk, and we were there when the 4 of them came down, and I'm telling you categorically with my own eyes, 100 yards behind them, behind some trees coming down from the castle, were the Netflix crew. Right, there is fact nailed on.
Well, my God, it's all going on. Let's get to Meghan and Harry and this terrible week that he's had, and Dr. Sophie Chandoka and Centre Ballet soon. But this is just broken. Now, this charity that Harry founded in 2006 in honour of his late great mum, Princess Diana, to help kids afflicted by the scourge of AIDS and HIV. Many of them left orphans because their parents died when AIDS was sweeping through the African continent. Now, good charity, it's done a lot of good work, but my God, it is unravelling fast. Sophie Chandoka says it's basically Harry and his mates have mismanaged it. And now the Charity Commission here, the watchdog of all charities, very austere organisation, has opened an official investigation into what's gone wrong here, into mismanagement. And Harry has come out of the woodwork and issued his first statement on all of this, saying, this is Harry, what has transpired over the last week has been heartbreaking to witness, especially when such blatant lies hurt those who have invested decades in this shared goal. He won't give up, will he? Your thoughts?
My thoughts are... I would have asked your friend not to come out and accuse the doctor of being jealous of your wife for not being the most important person of color, is how Alex Rayner said it to the Daily Mail on the stage. I mean, Prince Harry hasn't done himself any favors throughout this process. He can accuse Dr. Sophie of lies all he wants, but his side has been slinging mud just as much as her side has.
Indeed, and Rayner and his... So what Harry has done is maintained a sort of haughty royal silence personally. But
never
he has
complain, never explain when it's convenient.
Yeah, except he isn't really doing that because he's deployed his posh pals to go out there and defend him, this Alex Rayner guy. And they have had the temerity to say that this Sophie Chandoka, she's awful, she's playing the race card. Coming from Harry, coming from Meghan, the most voracious player of the race card in the history of humankind. Unbelievable. Double standards, hypocrisy. How dare Harry accuse anyone else of playing the race card? It's disgusting,
wait.
I think.
It is disgusting, but the hypocrisy continues because according to the Telegraph, Dr. Sophie Chandoka is not as qualified as we have been presenting her to be. You see, they say that the honorific doctor title that she uses is not an earned medical or academic title. This is them saying, basically trying to discredit this woman, saying instead it derives from an honorary doctorate in business administration awarded to her by the University of Coventry in 2023, seemingly in recognition of her diversity campaigning. So they're trying to discredit this woman and tell people like us we shouldn't or don't need to call her doctor. Kevin, this is coming from a pair of American residents that insist we refer to them as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Yeah. Like the irony that they're going to try to discredit this woman by saying, well, she's not really a doctor.
Yeah.
When they insist that we refer to them as the Duke and Duchess. How Duke and Duchess are these two sitting in their Montecito mansion with their 16 bathrooms?
But would that be the Meghan that's not really a royal?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
that one.
exactly.
Oh, I thought it was, yeah. How dare they? What is wrong with this couple? I mean,
It's
you know.
ridiculous.
And by the way, Kinsey, look, as far as I'm concerned, Harry deserves this. To see the tables turned on him. He spent, what is it now, 5 years accusing me and all my fellow Brits and the royal family of all being racist, slave drivers. You know, I'm not racist, but you all are. Unconscious bias. Well, he has had the tables humiliatingly turned on him. Dr. Chandorka, Sophie Chandorka, a woman of colour. As far as I'm concerned, I'm told she's a lawyer. I don't see what, you know. So she's a lawyer, a woman of colour. She certainly can speak for herself. She's a formidable lady. He said, no, no, no. She said, you are the racist. By the way, she was sick and tired of Harry's form of fundraising, white saviorism, colonial, you know, rich millionaires smugly playing polo, drinking champagne, a long, long way away from the poor little dirt poor black kids they were supposed to be helping. Sophie thought this was a bad look. She said, let's start raising money in Africa and not at polo matches a million miles away. That's what Harry didn't like, and that's why Harry wanted to get rid of her. She refused, so Harry quit instead. Now, okay, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, Harry deserves everything he gets. This is a serious argument, and I don't mean to make light of accusations of bullying, of racism, of misogyny. You shouldn't make light of that. But you can't help taking a certain pleasure in seeing this guy getting a dose of his own medicine. But he is, we know, absolutely distraught over this. He has been floored by this. He is in a kind of agony. Where is his damn wife? Where is she? Yeah. Why isn't she out there defending him?
I have a theory. I have a very strong theory here, because one of the stories that the Telegraph also told is from an anonymous source that's formally within the charity, was that basically Dr. Sophie Chandorka bulldozed her way into this position, that she was initially approached about helping them find someone to be the new chairperson. They wanted Sophie, because of her history on the board, she was on the board for 6 years, they asked her to help them filter through some applicants, and Dr. Sophie was furious and threatened them with a lawsuit that she wasn't being considered, that she was going to have people look into the fact that she wasn't, according to these reports, according to a source that works within the charity. So my argument is, I think that because of the way that Harry and Meghan have tried to be anti-racism activists and these real virtue signalers.
How's that going for them now?
Yeah, exactly. I think that because they have positioned themselves as these, you know, virtue signalers, that they likely pushed for Dr. Sophie to have this opportunity based on, I don't think it was at fear as much as they recognized that what she said kind of aligned with the arguments they'd been making over the years. I think Meghan Markle isn't saying anything because Meghan Markle pushed for Dr. Sophie to get that position in some way, shape, or form, and it's backfired extraordinarily.
Yeah, and let's remember, though, Sophie Chandorka has been the chair woman of Centre Bali for 6 years. Harry used to think...
No, she was on the board for 6 years. She's a relatively new chairwoman.
Okay, so she's been around the charity for 6 years. So Harry knows her, and Harry apparently used to think the sun shone out of her backside, but he's rather changed his position now. Now, he stands accused, as I say, of being a kind of white saviour, colonial, racist, who bullied and talked down to Sophie. imperiously. And of course, we know that then there was this awful moment when at a polo event, the trophy presentation, Meghan turned up unexpectedly, and she decided she would present the award. And we're looking at it now, this awful, awkward, excruciating shuffling. And after this, because everybody started talking about it, the whole world was gossiping. What on earth is going on there? As these two women, Meghan and Sophie, jostle for position, and Meghan obviously tries to take prime position. Harry, in order to diffuse this, gets in touch with Sophie Chandorker and says, "You've got to issue a statement of support for my wife." She said no. First of all, she didn't want to. And secondly, she said, look, Centre Barley is not an extension of Brand Sussex. Harry then is said to have imperiously, just imagine it, demanded that she explained herself. Who does he think he is?
No, I don't know. I mean, I think he's likely learned a few lessons from Meghan, who we've heard is a bully, allegedly, for years now. I've heard that she's a bully longer than I didn't hear that she was a bully.
Yeah.
But
Call her a bully, she won't sue you, I'll tell you that. She didn't sue the Hollywood Reporter, who called her a flat-out bully, and she didn't sue Vanity Fair, who, over 8,000 words, called her the most awful bullying boss in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, when we look at why Prince Harry defends Meghan so fiercely and why she's not defending him so fiercely, I do wonder how much she had to do with Dr. Sophie's placement in as the chairwoman. But I also wonder, we quoted a few weeks ago, and from page 6, somebody was talking about how frustrated Harry and Meghan were with the Heritage Foundation case, because they were working so hard to have a...
That's the Heritage Foundation in Washington, the think tank that is still waging a long legal battle to get to the details of his visa application to live in America revealed, because they say it's possible he might have lied about his drug use.
Yes, and the story was that Harry and Meghan were angry because they were working so hard to have a squeaky clean image, and Prince Harry's continuous the headlines surrounding Prince Harry's drug use was negatively affecting, in Meghan's mind, the squeaky clean image she'd worked so hard to create. And I think that I see that a little bit here as well, that professional separation. Meghan is posting, please buy my honey, please buy my jam. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's having one of the worst PR weeks of his 40 years on this planet. I think
it's the scandal. I think it's the scandal of his life. I think it is the scandal of his life.
There was the Halloween costume. Yeah. I don't know.
No, I think it's this. And he cherishes his royal brand. And it may now be destroyed beyond repair. It really has been knocked for six.
Let me ask you this. If the court rules in his favor, do you think Cenobale will ever be what it was before?
No,
because
I think
millions of people heard the word Cenobale for the first time within the last 2 weeks, and their description of them, or the perception of that charity, has already been put into their minds based on this scandal. I don't know how he goes back if she's given the boot and recovers from this.
Yeah, I don't think he'll go back at all. Now, this is why I think that Meghan, I think this is so bad that she's doing nothing to help her husband. Nothing. Here's why I think she isn't doing anything, why she doesn't want to. I think she doesn't want to be seen anywhere near this guy at the moment, old Ginger Nuts, her husband. It's because she's busy trying to sell her non-jam and her honey tea and all of that crap that she's got on sale on Ever at last. $14 for a jar of fruit spread. Can't be called jam because there's not enough sugar in it, apparently. Now, so she's launching what she thinks is going to be a $1 billion business. Now, she's got enough problems with her own image for being a bully. But right now, her husband is enmeshed in this massive row scandal. standing accused of being a bully, a racist, imperiously talking down to a woman of colour, a kind of white saviour colonialist, you know, and so on. The worst allegations you could possibly imagine. He hasn't responded to them. I think he probably should. But she doesn't want to be anywhere near him, because that is going to be a very bad look as she tries to flog all of her jam, tries to get this business going. That's why I think we've heard nothing from Meghan to support her husband.
Well, it's also a diversion tactic. For Meghan, it's the same with, hey guys, I got season 2 of my show that's already recorded and being edited and done. You know, a surprise, I just found out I got season 2. Really? Because the contract says otherwise.
You always knew, didn't she? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was just to distract from all of the negative headlines surrounding what a piece of you-know-what the show was. The show itself was absolutely horrific. It was being destroyed by legitimate TV critics and by legitimate outlets that have in the past pandered to these two. And so to distract from it, she did, you know, she came out, did some twirls on Instagram and said, hey, guess what? I'm getting a season 2. So yesterday, when all of the you-know-what's hitting the fan, Meghan comes out and says, oh my God, you guys, I sold out. I sold out, even though, like, for all we know, and actually I've heard that the supplies that they produced, the inventory was in incredibly small numbers.
Old technique. Create the illusion, the image that your products are deeply in demand so that everybody else wants to get a slice of the action. I can reveal...
And so all of the Sussex, pro-Sussex outlets are going, oh my God, can you believe Meghan Markle sold out? Wow, she's so impressive. She did it. And then everybody that has a half a brain cell is like, actually, can we focus on the problem here? They're saying Prince Harry's a racist.
Yeah, exactly right, exactly right. And she doesn't want to be involved with allegations of racism, colonialism, white saviorism, bullying, and talking imperiously down to a woman of colour, which he clearly did. That last thing, he clearly did, demanding that Sophie explain herself. And now we can see, as you said earlier, Kinsey, that he's waging this covert campaign to discredit Sophie Chandorka. Stop it, Harry. Stop it. This is just wrong. Shouldn't be doing this. Let's also, you know, these people, it's such an eventful week. We need also to talk about a story that's emerged today that, of course, he's continuing like a dog with a bone to pursue this legal case against his father's country, his father's government, which is basically what the British government is, the King's government, to demand armed police protection when he comes back to Britain, when he visits his home country. Now, he's been turned down time and time again for this because he's not a frontline royal, he's not a working royal, and therefore does not warrant armed police protection. But he continues this case, this legal case, to try and persuade or get the government to give him this. So he's gone back to court, the appeal court, yet again. He won't succeed. He should stop wasting the court's time. But I had an idea, I had a thought today, put a tweet out and send it to you, that, look, Meghan now is hogging so much of the limelight, you know, blotting him out of the picture. So we've hardly seen him for ages. You know, it's all Meghan, 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 me, Meghan, buy my jam, buy my honey, buy my rubbish. You can't even see him. So I just think he should leave it a while. And then when he comes back to Britain, he won't need any security at all because people won't remember what he looks like. They won't recognise him. That could work.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. But I think that the real question here is why. Ravik has always said police protection is an option based on the circumstances. And I think I'm not being generous enough to suggest 9 out of 10 times Harry has received those armed guards when he lands in the UK. I'm tempted to say 10 out of 10 times Harry has actually received the armed guards since he's visited post-Megxit. I'd be surprised if he hadn't. happened, because I feel like that would have been a story. So Ravik's always said it's on a case-by-case basis. We're just not going to be at your beck and call. We have some protocol you have to go through. You have to tell us 20x whatever days prior to you coming that you're going to be here. If Prince Harry is showing up to work with Well Child, if Prince Harry is showing up to support his father in some way, shape, or form, or brother, there is going to be armed guards there waiting for him. If Meghan Markle wants to come Christmas shopping or wants to come stay at the Soho house so she can hang out with some of her invisible friends, then no, armed guards
imaginary
are probably,
friends.
armed guards are probably not, they're not going to be there waiting for her. But if they're going to be there with some real value and purpose behind the visit, then I suspect that they will have the security that they need or want. These two people are impossible to please. And they, you know, the king hasn't even, I don't even think the king has spent a significant amount of time with his grandchildren. So I don't know what his drama is when most of the time he's going to have this exact security that he's asking for. Actually, I do, because you've told me it's all ego, and he's mad that Prince William gets something that he doesn't.
That's what it is. You're right. He's perfectly able and entitled to request armed police protection when he comes back. Then the police will make a decision about whether or not he warrants it. But what annoys him is he no longer automatically warrants armed police protection, and his hated brother does. William does. Or
and you quit your job, Harry. You quit your job. If I were to quit my job, you know what happens? I lose my health insurance. I lose my parking space. I lose my free lunch or whatever. I lose the perks. You lose the perks when you quit your job. That's just the world.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Meghan is posting pictures of her produce now all over social media. She's mailed out packages of her jam and stuff. Sorry, fruit spread, to people like Kim Kardashian to get publicity. So she is, acting like a saleswoman possessed. And, you know, this was the woman who was going to be the great philanthropist, who was going to change the world. And now she's just like somebody standing at a stall trying to flog stuff.
I talked to Kim Kardashian earlier today, and she said to receive a jar of preserves. She said to receive a jar of preserves from the same woman that inspired people like to dance in the street, like when Nelson Mandela was finally released from prison. She said it was a spiritual moment. I'm just kidding. None of that happened. Yeah. But yes, she told us she was going to be the second coming of Mother Teresa. And here she is hawking her jars of jam.
Look, I don't want to be sort of British and uncommercial, because you know what we're like, and I don't want to be too snobbish, but I'm probably going to be. I mean, it is a tawdry, tacky spectacle to see her just saying, buy my jam, I'm going to be a billionaire. It's just unpleasant. It's an unpleasant spectacle, and she's sunk very low, I think. I think Harry must be looking at this because he's a royal. He doesn't know about money, or he's not interested in being a billionaire. He's never had to worry about money.
He just learned how to pay his own phone bill, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. So he must be looking at this and thinking, what the hell is going on? She clearly hasn't got time to even talk to him, doesn't want to be seen with him, will not defend him because she's got better things to do. Apparently, we hear he's just moping around the Montecito mansion, not doing very much at all. Has been absolutely floored by this, is absolutely distraught about that he now stands accused of being a racist. And you wonder, don't you, just how much longer can this relationship last?
Yes, and you know, I'm with you. If Meghan Markle was just trying to make money to support her family, because she says to the New York Times, "I have to work." Like, I get it.
Oh yeah,
but you know what? You know what? I think you are a mean girl, and I watched you tear down an institution that I respect, I love, and I value. And not only did you sit there and lie about them and try to destroy them, utilizing and manipulating the United States media, but you continue to milk your proximity to them by throwing a title that the Queen would have never given you had she known what a disgrace you were going to be. The Queen would have never given them those titles had she known that they were going to be
Exactly right, Kinsey. She is cashing in on her semi-royal status, and I say that loosely.
So look, the big talk, and there are plenty of conversations in many of the papers about the King's visit to hospital, part of the sort of cancer treatment, cancelling various different things in events that he was supposed to be attending yesterday, and then indeed popping off for the weekend down to Gloucestershire to his country pile there to perhaps have a little weekend off. How worried should we be about his health?
I think we've always known that because he's been continually having treatment, as he says, he's living with cancer at the moment, and they're just managing his schedule. Look, as it's been referred to, this is a bump in the road, but as he says, he's going to, quoting Churchill, if you're happy for me to use this particular phrase, but he's going to keep on, as he says, to make sure that he's not going to let this cancer treatment stand in the way, because he also feels, yes, that physically, but being out and doing his job makes him feel sort of mentally and spiritually better, because this is what he's here to do. So he's not going to let it, as I say, grind him down. But obviously there was a little bit of a setback post some treatment that he had this week. But as you say, he then was seen yesterday with his window down in his car, heading off to go to Highgrove, where I'm sure it's a lovely sunny day in the Cotswolds, because that's where I'm talking to you from. So I'm sure he will be pottering around in his garden, although...
Have you been invited over, Rupert?
Sorry?
Have you been invited over?
No, unlikely to happen, but it's a bit of a schlep, but I'm in the north part of the Cotswolds, but it's lovely here. But I assume the Queen is going to try and prevent him doing what he loves doing best, which is hedge laying. But so I'm sure a restful weekend, bearing in mind that he's off to Italy shortly for a state visit, which was due to meet the Pope, but I believe due to the Pope's ill health, that might not be happening.
And as you say, you know, there is this sort of discussion, you know, he's off to Highgrove for a few days. They have indicated that the schedule will be sort of back on schedule next week. This is a bump in the road, etc., etc. There is also discussion about whether he's doing too much. That I suppose, you know, we look at the royal family, we saw the Queen, the previous, you know, the late Queen's workload and what she continued to do in her life, but she had done it all her life. Whereas, of course, here is somebody who has been king in waiting and then becomes king at a stage where, frankly, most people would be retiring. Do we perhaps need to expect less of the head of the royal family and maybe encourage others to do more?
Well, the trouble is, it's that the royal family is a bit thin on the ground, and of course, one of the he wants to still do the public-facing engagements, because that is what he's here for. He wants to be seen and meeting the public, and that's why it would have been bitterly disappointing for him that he wasn't in Birmingham. But I see what you're saying. But the trouble is, we've got the Princess of Wales currently still recovering from cancer. It's something that needs managing. And obviously, Prince William has got, he's pulled in both directions, but they're a bit thin on the ground as a result of the departure of the Duke and Duchess of Montecito. So it does cause them a few problems. So I'm not sure what you can do about it, but they are very mindful that they have to keep the show on the road. And that's why the King is determined to try and go about his business as normal while managing his cancer treatment.
And as you say, that's all ongoing. And just finally to you, Rupert, as we look ahead, I mean, you know, springtime is kind of when we see more royal activity, perhaps. I'm assuming that we're going to see, yes, lots of the King and Queen, but also presumably other senior members of the royal family out and about at various different events.
Absolutely. You know, it's the usual summer garden parties, you name it, Trooping of the Colour, the King's birthday parade. How will Royal Ascot look? So I'm sure the King will want to try and go about his business as regular without interfering, because, you know, every royal visit takes a lot of organising, and it's not just sort of thrown together at the start of the week like some of us do our diaries. But in his case, it's months in advance, and a lot of people put a lot of work into these things. So he will be frustrated, but hopefully he's having a lovely time pottering around his garden in a lovely spring day, and hoping that and he'll be back to work next week doing whatever's supposed to be scheduled in the diary.
Well, that's certainly something I'd like to be doing, pottering around the garden. It's time to get those seeds in. I tell you, a lot of work to be doing.
And let's talk about the King, because he has experienced temporary side effects of his cancer treatment in a short period of time in hospital. Yesterday, during his suffering from these side effects, then he returned to Clarence House. He's cancelled the tour of Birmingham as well, which was meant to happen today. He is 76 years old, and Rupert Bell is our Talk's royal correspondent. Is this a shock, Rupert?
I think we have to say no, because he's been continually carrying on with treatment, and as anyone knows, when you're undergoing treatment for cancer, not that we know exactly what the nature of the cancer is, there will be side effects, and in his case he does want to try and push on through and try and operate as near as normal schedule as is possible for a 76-year-old man. And he will be deeply frustrated that he hasn't been able to fulfill his engagements today. Remember, these are often planned months in advance, and so a lot of work will have gone into the various organisations and people he was going to be visiting today. So it will be very galling to him. But I think it just shows the sort of vulnerabilities that he is under. And he's also about to undergo a visit to Italy, where he's due to meet the Pope, who's been obviously suffering his, much publicised health issues as a very elderly Pope as well. So there's it's going to be, he will want to still fulfil that, but he will be frustrated. But obviously it does throw into, concerns for people about just how ill he is, because it's been a long time. He's still been undergoing treatment.
It's over a year now, isn't it? It was February 2024 that he was originally diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, but everyone knows cancer sufferers. There's no miracle cure suddenly for it to disappear, particularly at his age. But I think and the Queen was carrying on her engagements normally yesterday, so presumably there was not undue panic about this. But obviously it does, mean the King has to, because he gets very frustrated. He wants to be out there. He's a workaholic. He wants to make an impact as the new monarch of this country and be out there, because that's what, he's waited, as they say, a long time for this opportunity, and it will be frustrating for him that he's been unable to fulfill his engagements. But I think now, presumably with the weekend, he'll have a chance to sort of regroup, and obviously decisions will be made about how the next week is managed, if there are any cancellations, and obviously going forward to the trip to Italy.
He's 76 years old. The palace source describing it to the BBC as a most minor bump in the road that is very much heading in the right direction. From what you're hearing, Rupert, do you think that's fair enough to say that actually his treatment is heading in the right direction?
Well, you've got to look at him and think it must be, because he seems to be trying to fulfil as near as normal a schedule as you would expect for the monarch. He doesn't want to sit, and he's doing all the meet and greets that is expected of him, holding audiences. He then goes out and about. So I suppose it is a minor bump in the road, but a very frustrating bump. It's a bit like the potholes on the road. It's just if someone, he wants probably to get them repaired, and so he can get back out there as quickly as possible. But I hope he will be able to fulfill his trip to Italy, because I know how much he's looking forward to that. So overall, it is, I think, that might be a suitable assessment of just where his health situation is, bearing in mind not only his, but obviously his daughter-in-law as well is starting to have a more normal schedule. But again, it's by no means a full one.
Tell us about Catherine as well, the Princess of Wales. She has had her own battle with cancer. How's she at the moment?
Well, I think, we've seen pictures. She looks well. And obviously, though, still very mindful about how much she's out and about. And we saw at rugby recently. We've seen her with the Irish Guards recently for St Patrick's Day celebrations. So we've very much seen her out and about. But again, I suppose with the holidays coming around, we will see, she very much protects the school holidays, like a lot of working people. But obviously, we will expect to see her, I'm sure, there will be plenty of opportunities to see her, whether it be at Wimbledon and other places over the coming months. But looking at what you see, is that the fact is she does appear to be recovering in her own time. But obviously the King is the most significant. He wants to be out there. There's a lot of work that he wants to do, and he will be disappointed that he's not only frustrated for himself, but he's let down the people he was expecting to meet today in Birmingham.
He won't want to. He won't want to have done that. Just finally, there was some discussion recently about royal tours, and previously, of course, they were done in a very different way. This sort of short, sharp idea that you go somewhere for a short period of time, perhaps reacting to how the royals work now, and also that you don't need to spend such a long time getting to these places. Do you think that's the way the future of these things are going to be done, particularly when you have slimmed down a slimmed down royal family and fewer of them to go around, essentially?
You're referring now to the Estonia trip of the Prince of Wales, which was 36 hours in and out. Thank you very much. But a very busy time because he wants to keep his sort of family time at the weekend sacrosanct and all that. But I think it is, you know, Prince and Princess of Wales had their sort of, with their trip to the Caribbean, went a bit wrong. He wants to do the short trips because he thinks they can be more impactful. But that's not always going to be the case, because you can't do a 36-hour trip in and out to somewhere like Australia, where, of course, the royal family is still the head of state. So it's not always going to be so, but I do think it is something that they want to say, right, we'll go in, make an impact, and that's very much the Prince of Wales's modus operandi. He doesn't want to just go in and be sort of hanging around. He wants to make sure that whatever he does and wherever he goes, it has an impact, and it's the soft power element of the royal family, which we have seen trying to broker all the shenanigans around President Trump, you know, for all what's going on with his view, Trump's view of economically with this country. He still has a soft spot for the royal family, so they have an important part to play in trying to keep President Trump under lock and key, or whatever it is that they need to do to him to make it easier. But obviously, from the royal family point of view, it is something I think we'll see much more of.
Also, can we please discuss all of the briefing against Dr. Sophie Shandaka happening right now? Like, Harry and Meghan literally went on international television and complained about the royal family or anonymous sources briefing against them. And that's literally what we're watching happening right now. According to The Telegraph, one of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's go-to publications, conveniently, Dr. Sophie Shandaka is not as qualified as she seems. You see, quote, the honorific of doctor she uses is not an earned medical or academic title. Instead, it derives from an honorary doctorate in business administration awarded to her by the University of Coventry in 2023, seemingly in recognition of her diversity campaigning. Well, Paul Nuki of The Telegraph, let me introduce you to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, two American residents that can barely keep a job and most certainly do not represent Sussex, England, or the British royal family. Now, the United States does not officially recognize royal titles, as the U.S. Constitution prohibits granting or recognizing titles of nobility. Article I, Section 9, Clause 8, also known as the Emoluments Clause. Foreign royals, including non-working members of the royal family, can obviously pretend they're still royal and use their titles socially and in private settings if they choose. But the reality is, it's about as legit as a mushroom burger. If a non-working royal moves to the U.S., especially after slandering their ancestry, they should quite honestly ignore their old title and live as a private citizen. They can choose to use their birth name or any other preferred name legally. However, the U.S. government and legal documents will not officially acknowledge noble or royal status. Rachel Meghan Markle. A spokeswoman for Cinnabale told the BBC that the use of doctor was a matter of personal choice and that there was no legal restriction preventing honorary degree recipients from using the title. If we have to live in Meghan Markle's Delulu land of, you know, I'm Sussex now, then I'm ride or die on the Dr. Sophie title. Dr. Sophie, I'm all in. Because you worked harder to earn that title than Meghan Markle ever did. She didn't even Google him. She didn't even Google the family. 18 months and Meghan had already packed her bags and God knows how much of the fine china. The same Telegraph article questioned Dr. Sophie's fundraising abilities, saying a hefty bill for consultants said to be in the region of $500,000, a failed bid to bring in replacement donors from the U.S., and an alleged request, I don't even think Dr. Sophie's responded to this one, by Ms. Shandaka for $300,000, a salary for her unpaid position, prompted the trustees to ask her to step down. Dr. Sophie has already cleared the story about it. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like she clearly expressed her frustrations around fundraising in the US, telling the Financial Times the #1 risk for this organization was the toxicity of its lead patron's brand, lead patron being Prince Harry. She argued that controversy surrounding Prince Harry since he moved to the US had an impact on the charity's ability to diversify its donor pool and make senior hires, saying, when you start to interview people, they're asking questions about, well, these mixed messages around the patron. She's absolutely right. Harry and Meghan's popularity continues to be on the decline here in the US. They're considered problematic, no matter how many jars of jam she sells. One LA-based TV executive who's dealt with Harry and his team over the past few years told the Daily Beast, this is a very transactional town. And when you are perceived as toxic, people run a mile from you. So no, I haven't seen Harry at any dinners lately. His brand is a busted flush, and no one wants to be associated with failure. The fact is that Harry started with one of the best brands in the world, Prince Harry, and trashed it. The clue is in the name, Prince Harry. It's increasingly sunk in now to the wider world that he is not a royal anymore. They followed up. Bullying allegations seem to follow this couple everywhere. It's massively unhelpful, as his whole brand was being a nice guy as opposed to another nasty royal. You know what immediately comes to my mind when I hear the phrase nasty royal? Meghan Markle's fake curtsy. Let that one sink in. So what are your thoughts? I can't believe they would throw out the doctor title as if to discredit this woman for all of the hard work she's put in, as if to say she's unworthy to be in the position that she's in, or she's unworthy to have received anything she's received in the past, because it's not quite what that author assumed it was, or whoever whispered it in that author's ear. She's not even a doctor. She doesn't even go here. It's like so Mean Girls. It's so Mean Girls. Flashback to Vanity Fair that said that Meghan Markle, the way she bullied was like Mean Girls. And then you have that she's not even a doctor. She doesn't even go here. That famous scene from Mean Girls. So that's convenient that reminds me of that, isn't it? Let me know what you think, because when I read this line about the explanation that she was a doctor, but they were trying to discredit it, I thought, good Lord, these are coming from two people that are no longer working members of the British royal family. Meghan was a working royal for 18 months of her. I have pairs of pantyhose that have lasted longer than that, okay? That means, I think they call them the tights. That means tights in the UK, all right? I have pairs of tights that have lasted longer than 18 months. So I don't even want to hear the word Duchess anymore. But if you're People Magazine, or you're one of these you're one of these outlets that are just so desperate for a moment of their time, you're going to continue to pander, and good luck. Enjoy.
It's also 5 years since Megxit. Doesn't seem like it, does it? So we've been playing you through the show all manner of different key moments since Harry and Meghan left the United Kingdom. Here's Meghan talking about Harry, you might remember this one, with Drew Barrymore.
He found you. I mean, look, life is full of surprises. I did not expect to meet H and for this to be our love story. And, you know, I'm very lucky. I am married to the funniest, sweetest, most charming. I mean, he's all the things that you're describing. He's an amazing father. And so, you know, I count my blessings because I have him, and also I have a partner who is so supportive of me.
Well, that's not exactly the way it's been put by Sophie Chanduka, She doesn't say he's the greatest man alive, or the funniest, or the kindest. She says that Harry unleashed the Sussex machine on her in a case of harassment and bullying at scale after she tried to change things at Centre Bali. Have a listen to what she has to say.
At some point on Tuesday, Prince Harry authorized the release of a damaging piece of news to the outside world without informing me, or my country directors, or my executive director. And can you imagine what that attack has done for me, on me, and the 540 individuals in the Centre Bali organizations and their family? That is an example of harassment and bullying at scale. And so if the world didn't want to believe that there's such a thing as bullying, this unleashing of the Sussex machine on me and the 540 employees at Centre Bali who received this and have had to defend it.
Yes, two different pictures being painted here, right? So according to Sophie Chanduka, the trustee chairman of Centre Bali, Harry's a bully and he unleashed the full scale images and harassment of the Sussex machine on her. Unbelievable. By the way, you can see the summits, it's all over, they've all gone. Look at that, empty room. I don't know if that was Yvette Cooper, who's still talking. No, she's not still talking, but that was it. I mean, it lasted 10 minutes. So Keir Starmer got up, rolled up his sleeves. Yvette Cooper said, you know, the countries are still just as close to each other as they always were, but people can move around a lot quicker now. And now they've all gone. Brilliant. Well, that was fantastic, wasn't it? Let's talk to Rupert Bell, talks royal correspondent, to see what he makes of it all. Rupert, very good morning to you.
What, the 10-minute speech of Yvette Cooper, or between...
It's a very free-form show today, Rupert. You can speak about anything you wish. If you wish to comment on that, you may well do. I suspect you'd be more comfortable talking about this absolute car crash for Prince Harry, this, isn't it?
Well, I tell you what, there's no love lost between Prince Harry and Sophie Chanduka, who is, of course, the chief executive of the Centre Bali Foundation. And it really does seem to be a war of words now between these two. And what she is saying, that Harry basically is trying to sort of shoehorn his ideas, and this image of polo, sort of the white man coming to the rescue of the Africans, is no longer relevant. But of course he still wants to play polo, and that polo match last year seems to me where the breakdown of their relationship first sort of manifested itself in the build up to that, when Harry suddenly said that he wanted to bring a Netflix crew after it was deemed that it was going to be a private event where lots of money was going to be potentially raised, but then they had to change the whole framework of the day. Then we saw the presentation that obviously was online, where we saw Meghan seemingly making Sophie Chanduka move to a place going under the trophy. It all looked a bit unseemly, but really yesterday she came out all guns blazing and basically saying Harry is the problem from the moment Megxit happened. And obviously we're sort of reflecting on the 5 years of that. It meant it became increasingly hard for Centre Bali to raise money, because what was Harry's role in it, and the future, and the allegations in the spare book, in the documentary, all painted a different picture to the one that Meghan obviously wants to paint out, that he's this superhuman husband, and that he's an amazing father, as you heard there, which he may be. But clearly, when it comes to Centre Bali, we have seen a breakdown of relationships, which is sad, because back in the day, this meant an awful lot to Harry. But unfortunately, the hand, perhaps, of Meghan is all over this breakdown as well.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? Because who knows now where it all goes. I mean, 540 people employed by this charity presumably will be out of a job. The charity will be somehow decommissioned. And all of this good work that he talks about. I mean, he used to talk about Africa being the place that he wanted to do the most good. And he doesn't seem to care about it anymore, by the looks of things.
Well, and there are other allegations about other charities that he's involved in. The Royal Park, the Parks charity has had allegations of inappropriate behaviour around, and not necessarily directed necessarily at Harry, but he has got himself into a pickle, basically.
Yeah.
And he has created this by leaving the royal family, which comes with immediately people want to be associated with the royal family. But now that he's separated, he's a commercial entity, it has changed the dynamic. And that is what Sophie Chanduka is basically implying, that it's a very different beast. And it will struggle to raise money, which is very sad when you think that they had been doing some good work, but now that it will throw into question their ability to raise the kind of money that they need to operate effectively, helping the poor children of both Lesotho and other countries in the area. So, I mean, it really is a sad indictment of where Harry is at the moment, and he just seems bereft because Meghan's doing everything, podcasts, programs, and is out there. Whether you think it's any good, that remains to be seen. And I know which view you'd be on, Mike. It doesn't take the brains of an archbishop to work that out. But I can assure you that at the moment, Harry just looks like a lost soul with not a lot to do.
Right. Well, that's the trouble. I mean, and a lot of people would say, given his litigious nature, if these things that are being said by the head of this charity are untrue, or indeed he wants to challenge them, then he should come out and say something. But he's saying very little. He's been remarkably quiet on all of this.
Well, that might be the point. And remember, this Sophie Chanduka, she's a lawyer, and she made sure she would have probably covered her all bases before she did all these interviews, knowing that she must have felt that she was in a very strong position to make these claims about what Harry has done over the last couple of months, or the breakdown of the relationship and the way he has conducted his affair when it comes to Centobili. So it's quite interesting where it is at now, but she obviously feels she has a very strong case to make these very strong allegations against the way Harry has conducted his business within the charity.
Yes. And the charity still exists now, or does it not? Has it been disbanded?
It still exists, and that's why she made reference to the 540 people who are employed and work for the charity in doing their work and have done. So it will have come as a surprise. It throws into question how the charity is going to move forward, because if you're pitching for business, how do you pitch for business when there's trustees have been going left, right and centre? Where is the business going to be in a year's time? Harry obviously will be no longer part of it, so it's going to have a very different dynamic. But obviously when you have someone like the Duke of Sussex as one of the key members, he had the potential just by his name to perhaps draw some interest. But that, for the short term, is not going to happen, and because they basically want, or he wants, Sophie Chanduka to resign so they can put their person in who they want now. But remember, they put her in the first place.
Absolutely right. It's bad news all round, I think, for Harry and inevitably for Meghan as well.